Let's talk about something that, let's be honest, affects pretty much all of us. The connection between the screen in your hand and that feeling of stress in your head. We're going to dive into how technology, especially social media, is actually designed to mess with our minds. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been scrolling through a feed, maybe for a few minutes, maybe for way longer than you planned, and when you finally put your phone down, you're left with this kind of empty, uneasy feeling? Like you actually feel worse than before you picked it up? If that sounds familiar, you are so not alone. And look, that feeling, it's not just in your head. It is a huge, widespread thing. Research shows that a staggering 70% of people report feeling more anxious after spending time on social media. It's a massive number, and it tells us something is going on here that we really need to understand. Which brings us to our first big idea. We're living in this anxious digital world. We're all sold this promise of constant connection. But for so many of us, it just ends up feeling like constant anxiety. Let's kind of unpack that paradox. It's a really weird feeling, right? You can have thousands of friends right at your fingertips, but a real, genuine connection can feel miles away. It's this pressure of being constantly on, always available. And it creates this low-level hum of anxiety that honestly can leave us feeling more alone than ever. So, if it can feel so bad, why do we keep coming back for more? Well, the short answer is, it's not an accident. It is absolutely by design. So, in this next part, we're going to see how these platforms are literally engineered to distract us, tapping right into our brains to keep us scrolling. Okay, the main character in this story is something called the engagement algorithm. Now, at its core, an algorithm is really just a set of instructions. But in this case, those instructions have one and only one goal: to figure out what will keep you glued to the platform for as long as humanly possible. So how does it pull that off? Well, it's a really simple but incredibly powerful three-step loop. First, it watches everything you do. Every like, every share, every second you pause on a video. Second, it uses all that data to build this super detailed profile of you. What you love, what you hate, what makes you angry. And third, it pushes you the most emotionally charged content it can find. The stuff that's going to be the most sticky to get a reaction out of you and keep you hooked. And this quote just nails it. A main goal of these systems isn't to make you smarter or happier or feel more connected. The goal is simply to keep you engaged. Your time, your attention, that is the product that's being sold. But you know, it's not just the technology. It's also about our own psychology. And that brings us to something called the comparison trap. This endless game of measuring our messy real lives against the perfect worlds we see online. And this right here is the absolute heart of the problem. See, as human beings, we are wired to compare ourselves to others. It's just how we figure out where we fit in. But social media puts that instinct on steroids. It shows us this non-stop stream of the absolute best, most polished moments from everyone else's lives, which we then hold up against the full, unedited, sometimes boring reality of our own. Let's just break that down for a second. On one side, you see the highlight reel, right? The amazing vacation, the big promotion, the perfect family photo. But what's left out is, well, everything else. The stress, the arguments, the self-doubt, all the messy, normal parts of being a human. And it's in that gap between their curated highlights and our everyday reality that anxiety just loves to grow. So what's the emotional fallout from all this? Well, as you can see, it's a bit of a mix. It often fuels feelings of inadequacy, a lot of envy, and that classic fear of missing out, FOMO. Now, to be fair, sometimes it can be inspiring, but the danger is in the balance. And for way too many of us, that scale tips heavily toward the negative stuff. Okay, that was a lot about the problem. Let's talk about what we can actually do about it. In this final section, we're going to go over some real practical steps you can take to build a much healthier relationship with technology and, take back control. And the most important thing to get here is that this is not an all or nothing deal. The answer isn't to just throw your phone away. It's about shifting from mindless reactive scrolling to mindful intentional use. It's about putting you back in the driver's seat. Here are 3 simple but honestly game-changing things you can do right now. First, turn off all your non-essential notifications. Every single buzz and ping is just a demand for your attention, pulling you out of your real life. Turning them off breaks that cycle. Second, set time limits for your apps. This isn't a punishment. It's about creating a boundary, making you conscious of how much time you're actually spending. And third, actively curate your feed. Be ruthless. Unfollow or mute any account that consistently makes you feel bad about yourself. Remember, it's your digital space. You get to be the editor, and we can take this even deeper with a practice called mindful scrolling. Before you even open an app, just take a breath and ask yourself, why am I opening this right now? Am I bored? Am I lonely? Am I looking for something specific? Then, while you're scrolling, check in with yourself. How is this actually making me feel? And the second it stops feeling good or useful, that's your cue. Stop. Close the app. This is all about consciously choosing to fill your feed and your mind with things that add real value to your life. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. So much of the conversation is about what technology does to us. But what if we just flipped that script? What if you became the architect of your digital experience? What if, from now on, you decided what your screen time was for? That little shift in perspective, that's the most powerful tool you have.